following program is suitable for all ages.
Buffone. A certain magic will always linger with the very name. It speaks of courage and fervor and the world's most brutal game. 55, worn by Doug Buffone, a Chicago Bear through and through. He demanded excellence of himself and anyone wearing navy blue.
You tell me what's going on. This is moronic. We're going to get our whipped all the way down the line. I want somebody to get kicked in the and get out there and play. You're getting paid to play this game. I'm playing right. I don't mind you getting beat. I got my whipped many times. But I tell you, I took somebody down with me. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
Football fans, this is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome, Bears fans. This is Buffone 55. I am your host, John Buffone. It's the bye week. No Bears football this weekend. That's kind of a bummer. But to get your Bears fix, I appreciate you tuning into Buffone 55. This is a fast-paced, unique spin on Chicago Bears football. And to break that all down for us, I'm going to throw it over to our producer, Aldo Gandia. Aldo, tell them how this show works.
Well, it's very simple. In the first half of the show, I typically ask you 5 questions about the Chicago Bears, and in the second half of the show, I ask you 5 questions about the upcoming opponent. You have 55 seconds to answer each question. Given that we're on the bye, though, what we're going to do this week is the first half of the show, I'm going to ask you 5 questions about the first half of the season. And then the second half of the show, I'll ask you 5 questions about the upcoming part of the season, your thoughts about what could happen moving forward. So that's the premise for this week's show. And this, of course, is all inspired, the fives are all inspired by Doug Buffone, my boyhood hero, and your uncle, Doug Buffone. So that's what our fans need to know.
All right, this has been a turbulent year so far already, so I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about the first half, and I'm ready to talk about the second half moving forward about this Chicago Bears squad.
Well, given that we're changing the format, I do want to get your thoughts on the Bears' loss to the New Orleans Saints last week. What were your thoughts about that game? I mean, I got to tell you, for me personally, this was one of the most disheartening Bears losses in recent memory. What about for you?
Oh, for sure. It was frustrating because I thought the Bears had every opportunity to win that game, and that would have been a big win for them on the road in New Orleans. Going into the bye week, it would have had a whole lot of momentum. They would have been at 4-4, and they just mental gaps. Again, if you take back, if you take away the offsides on the field goal attempt, and you take away and you give the touchdown to Zach Miller, which should have been a touchdown, and you kind of throw in those are the kind of games, and I even tweeted this out after the game. This is one of those games where you look at and it's the worst kind of loss because it's filled with 1,000 of what if moments or if only moments. If only this would have happened, if only this would have happened. Sometimes you'd rather lose by 30 than think about, one different thing and it could have been a whole different ball game. But it is what it is. They had a chance to win the ball game. They didn't.
And would you agree with me that was one of the worst officiated games the Chicago Bears have experienced in quite some time?
It was poorly officiated. I'm not normally one that goes after the refs because it's just it is what it is. You're going to catch a break here, you're going to catch a break there, you're not going to catch a break. But that was bad. And the fact that they could, and I'm going to go back to that Zach Miller touchdown catch, and I'm going to keep calling it a touchdown catch because basically he caught the ball, his leg shattered in half, he severed an artery, he rolled over twice, and then they still had enough evidence there to overturn that apparently. And whenever they broke it down later, saying, "Oh, we got the call right," they still pointed to nothing. So I think this is like, well, we got it wrong, but we can't tell people we got it wrong, which is even more infuriating. So it wasn't exactly the best officiated game in the world.
Hey, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I got an email a couple of days ago from a gentleman named Brent Malley. He listens to the show out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And he wondered, what should the NFL do to improve officiating. Do you have any thoughts off the top of your head on what you'd like to see? Because this has become kind of an epidemic, that and injuries.
Well, yeah, they've been going back and forth on this about whether or not refs should be full time, and like some of these refs have other jobs where they make a lot of money, and then they make it their ultimate side hustle as being an NFL referee as well. Some of these guys are lawyers, they're business owners, and then they're also NFL referees. There needs to be some kind of agreement here where you can get a younger crop of NFL referees in there that they're going to be doing this full time, where their entire life is based on making sure they get calls right. And honestly, you need some younger, and I don't want to say that these guys aren't good because they've been around the game their entire lives, but you need some guys that can keep up with the game. These guys are running down the field. You want to be able to at least keep up with them a little bit. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a youth movement in professional refereeing, and I think that needs to be their full-time job, because we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar operation here. And so you would think that the referees should be full-time referees. They should be this should be their entire life to make sure that they get the best results possible, and they're not the ones that are influencing the game. They're not the ones where you look back and say, oh, we won that game because of a pass interference call, or oh, we lost that game because they didn't call a blatant hold. So you want to try to take as many of those kind of feelings out of the game and make it feel like the players are actually dictating the outcome.
I hear you. I am with you there. All right, let's get started. And first, a reminder to our fans that we do have a chat room at MixLR. And if you're on Facebook, just go to our page. You can find the link there, or go to Twitter at Bears Bar Room. You can find the link there. Join us in our chat room. We've got a few people there now. We can interact with one another. If you've got a question for John, I'll try to fit it in. So first half of the show, again, is devoted to the first half of the Bears season. And I'll start with this. Let's give, why don't you give me your top 3 defensive players for the first half of the season? And then let's start with number 3 and work our way up to let's call him the defensive MVP of the season for the first half of the season. John, you are on the clock.
Well, number 3, I got Leonard Floyd. This is a guy that's under the microscope all year. They're assessing him, and he's so far delivered for the most part. He's on pace to have double-digit sacks, and that's including all the time he's asked to drop into pass coverage as well. He's not just a pin your ears back and go get the quarterback every play. He's doing a lot of other stuff too, and he's usually the best athlete on the field. So it looks like he's progressing every week. As for number 2, I'm going to go Kyle Fuller. I know I talk about him every week, but having him show up the ball has done wonders for this defense. We weren't sure what we were going to get in some of the free agents like Makamara and Cooper. And it looks like Fuller was just going to coast out the year and then go somewhere else. And now it looks like the Bears are going to have to shell out some money to keep him around. So he has been a really pleasant surprise to shore up the defense. And number 1, the MVP of this defense for me is Akeem Hicks. He is the heart and soul of this defense. And if the Pro Bowl were this week, he'd be a first ballot guy. He is so disruptive, so passionate. Other guys feed off of his energy, and he is such a force inside. It all starts with that pressure up front, and he is an absolute monster. It all starts with Akeem Hicks. He is my defensive MVP.
Boy, I agree totally with your list, and Akeem Hicks for me is just becoming one of my personal favorites of all time. I just love the way he plays. I love his attitude too, and every time he's interviewed, I just stop whatever I'm doing to listen to every word. He's a cool guy. All right, let's go on to question number 2. What about Vic Fangio? Would you please grade his performance over the first 8 games of the 2017 season? John, you're on the clock.
I'm going to give him a B+. I mean, I guess the only thing keeping him back from an A grade would be a few instances where they couldn't get off the field on third down. But of course, I'm nitpicking. You could easily give this guy an A. He is doing a great job scheming against teams. Mind you, this defense doesn't ever get off the field because of the offense. So unlike some other coaches on the team, I think the players really buy into Fangio. I think they trust him to put them in a position to win the game. So, I mean, you obviously, like I said before, credit some of the personnel changes, credit, Kyle Fuller stepping up and some of the guys they brought in. But he's dialing up some really good defenses that have played pretty well against some pretty good offenses as well. You look at Atlanta and Pittsburgh and Green Bay. Whenever they did have Aaron Rodgers, obviously they didn't win that game, and they didn't win the game against Atlanta. But the defense has looked good, and it's actually given something for Chicago Bears fans to look forward to, because at least you have one really good side of the ball, and it's not just heartening. We're going to see both sides of the ball get blown off the line of scrimmage. So I give him a solid B+, if not a borderline A.
this is a Bears defense town. It starts there first, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You stop. It's a physical town. It's a physical team. It's a physical history. Go punch someone in the mouth.
Well, and I love what you said on last week's show, John, where I asked you how does the Bears defense match up against the Saints offense, and your immediate reply was, well, I think this Bears defense matches up well with any offense. I mean, I
do. Yeah.
That was really great, and great to hear as a Chicago Bears fan. All right. What is not so great to hear is going to be your responses to our questions regarding the offense in the first half of the season. Why don't you give me your picks on who were the offensive players of note in the first half of the season?
Oh, man, I had to it's hard. By default, my number 3 star, I'm giving it to Kyle Long. I have no statistical backing for this. He's just a tough guy that really embodies the team. The guy dislocates his finger, and he wants to go back out. And this is a guy that also played on some Bears teams that weren't good at all, and he wants to be the leader of that team. In a watered-down pool as far as offensive talent, he's deserving to be on this list at least. Number 2, Tariq Cohen. He's been an explosive, shifty game breaker, a huge surprise. He was a steal in the draft. He can catch the ball. He can return punts. You get the same kind of feeling from him that you used to do whenever Devin Hester would get the ball. You know that feeling where he gets the ball and you're like, at any point, this could go to the house. And it's very, very exciting. Only Tariq Cohen can run the ball, and he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So that's even a triple threat there. And then if I had to give my MVP, it has to be Jordan Howard. The entire offense runs through him. He is 4th in rushing yards with 662, and that's 4th in the league, that is. And he's been the workhorse. We've seen him banged up too, and he wants to go out there. He wants to continue running between the tackles with that physical style of running. And quite frankly, without him, what little offense there is goes away. He is the offense. He is the offensive MVP.
Yeah, and I think that when we look back at this season from an NFL perspective, his Week 6 performance in Baltimore, where he had 36 carries for 167 yards. I mean, that is just a heroic performance. And then one note about Tariq Cohen, he has been part of 4 of the Bears' 12 longest plays from scrimmage this year, including that 70-yard catch in Week 7, and that's according to the Chicago Tribune. That's pretty amazing for this young man, and he's played just about every position, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's the home run hitter. He's the guy that when he has the ball, and you know, sometimes that does get him in trouble because he changes directions 9 or 10 times. But more often than not, he's going to get you positive yardage, and it's just that shot of energy where you're like, oh man, this could go to the house. They got it to Cohen. So it's exciting to have a guy like that on the offense.
Yeah, he's got that Barry Sanders-like quality where he changes directions tons of time, and my memory tells me that Barry broke some of those, but there were a lot of times that Barry Sanders was tackled behind the line of scrimmage. It's a very difficult running style to block for. So he's maybe with this zone blocking offense, he's got to make one cut and go.
Yeah, but he's a rookie, so he's gonna try to score it. We saw that with a muffed punt return a couple weeks ago. He's just trying to do whatever he can, and that's what you like to see out of your rookies. They're trying to contribute in any way possible, make a name for themselves.
All right, now question number 4. Remember, you got 55 seconds to answer. Grade the job offensive coordinator Dal Loggins has done through 8 games. You are on the clock.
I don't know if I need 55 seconds, but I'm gonna give this guy a D+. And basically that's just because they were able to win some games. I'm not inside the facility. I'm not on the practice field. But, man, the way he's handling Trubisky, it has looked rough, to say the least from afar. The game planning has been so vanilla, so boring, and so predictive that you aren't really giving your rookie quarterback a chance to succeed. I don't know if it's a fear of turning the ball over or there's some kind of agreement between Loggins and Fox that, you know, they won't risk anything so the defense can try to win the game. But I need you to stick with me for a second. I kind of got an analogy. This reminds me of when you're a kid and you go and you buy a new pair of shoes, or your parents get you a new pair of shoes, and you love these shoes. They're shiny, they're clean, they look great, they're your favorite shoes. So you never wear them because you don't want to get them dirty. You think, well, if I wear them there, they're going to get dirty. So, well, guess what? After you not wearing them for a while, eventually those shoes don't fit anymore, and you wasted a pretty good opportunity to wear a cool pair of shoes. So let's not toss out, in this case, a new pair of shoes because we are afraid to get them dirty. So I think we need to maybe toss Trubisky into the fire a little bit, see what he can do with an expanded playbook.
I love the analogy. Excellent way to put it. Very good. All right, this next question kind of goes hand in hand with the Doll question. Please assess the job done by Chicago Bears head coach John Fox. You have 55 seconds, and the clock starts now.
Well, he's hand in hand with Logan, so he also gets a D+. Basically because I didn't expect them to beat the Steelers. I didn't expect them to beat the Panthers. So that alone brings them from an F to a D+, I guess. Maybe surprise some people, but I've never been a NFL head coach. That might be a surprise to some people. So I get it. These guys aren't just coaching to win games and make the playoffs, but a lot of the times they're coaching for their jobs. I mean, this is their livelihood, and they want to avoid a scenario where they have to move to another city or retire. But it really does seem like Fox is coaching for his job. He's being conservative. He doesn't make any bad plays, and that's really leaving you scratching your head. Or I should say he's not trying to put his team to make any bad plays so it doesn't look really bad on national TV. But while trying to avoid that, that's exactly what he's doing. Can you imagine if they would have blown that game in Baltimore? I mean, winning is the only thing that made that debacle not explode completely. And I mean, special teams has been a complete mess. And I know he isn't completely in charge of that, but he's the head coach. So you either fix it or you find someone that does. So I think in his attempt to be conservative and safe, he's actually done the complete opposite of that.
Totally agree with that assessment. It's a shame that he isn't taking more risks, and that's part of the reason, from the reports that we've read, is why John Elway parted company with John Fox. He was just upset that Fox would not take risks, and it hurt the development of the team. And the very next season after Fox left, the Denver Broncos went on to win the Super Bowl. So, there could be something there about being too conservative. I understand, trying to win games, that's his job, and he's found the formula at least to win 2 out of the last 3. But boy, oh boy, he could very well be hurting the team more by this ultra conservative approach. Man.
Well, that might work in Denver when you have Peyton Manning and one of the best defense in the NFL, and you have all these playmakers like Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. That doesn't work when you're a team that's trying to carve out its identity with a rookie quarterback, some really young runners in the backfield, no receivers, and a defense that is budding but is not the cream of the crop quite yet. But that works for that kind of team, but not for the team that's trying to figure out who they are.
Hey, John, does it make sense to you that Adam Shaheen, the second-round draft pick of this team, has only been targeted twice all season on pass attempts?
It doesn't surprise me. I know we'll get to this a little bit later, but the rookie tight ends take longer to accumulate, acclimate to the NFL game, and this just goes along the lines of more conservative. If they're going to keep the bubble wrap on Trubisky, they're probably going to try to keep it on their young tight end too. So he doesn't. I don't know if this is a confidence thing or whatever it is, but it just goes in line with everything we've seen with the Bears so far this year.
Very good. Okay, now the second half of the show, we are now going to focus on the Bears' second half of the season. John, I'm going to ask you about Mitch Trubisky. What does he need to do to improve his play, and how can the offensive coordinator help him? You have 55 seconds, and the clock starts now.
Well, like I said, the bubble wrap is still on Trubisky, and it probably will be for the remainder of the season. Some things I see out of him, it looks like he gets happy feet every once in a while. He'll be in a clean pocket, and then he starts moving around, and that kind of cuts the field in half and limits his option. And he also takes too many sacks. I get that in the rare opportunity that Dow Loggins calls a pass play, you want to take advantage of it, but sometimes you just got to chuck the ball away and live to fight another down and not take a 8-10 yard sack. But how can Loggins help? I don't know. Call more passing plays other than when it's an obvious passing situation. Feels like Trubisky has to try to keep his arm warm during the drives because he only throws it on third down for 2 yards to a running back. So it's hard to watch sometimes. And I think he can help by not being afraid to play offense. You're an offensive coordinator, and you see that product. Doesn't pride kick in at some point? If the offense is your life, if your entire life is based around offense, aren't you tired of seeing the same drive over and over and over again? Or are you just happy to be employed at this point? So I think maybe being a little more creative on offense would be a good start for the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, on our last Bears Hour live show, which is on Mondays at 9 p.m. Central, Shane Marsaw noticed that, or said that this Bears offense has become so predictable, and he said, I've never played a down or a snap of football, but even me, I could tell what play was coming up next, and you can imagine then what the defensive coordinators have mapped out for in their game planning for the Bears offense. It's a shame, it really is. All right, well, maybe one guy can help with this offense. Wide receiver Dontrell Inman. What are your expectations for him? You have 55 seconds.
I think at least for the first month, I don't have great aspirations for Inman. It's kind of a dangerous mix of Inman not being accustomed to the Bears system and the Bears not really throwing the ball to wide receivers. And don't get me wrong, he's probably better than what they have, which is sad considering that he's a guy who couldn't get on the field for the Chargers but automatically becomes one of the best weapons in Chicago. That's kind of a sad way of looking at it. But I would hope that he would at least match the amount of catches he has in LA so far, which is 2. So I hope that he can at least get more than that. But in reality, I can see him having catches in the low 20s for the rest of the year. Maybe he grabs a touchdown or 2. It would be great if he came out with something to prove and he just starts lighting up the scoreboard and burning opposing defenses. But for that to happen, that would also require someone to call in some passing plays every once in a while that would target the wide receivers or go down the field a little bit. So, I mean, Inman has some things working against him, but like I said, catches in the low to mid 20s and maybe a touchdown or 2.
Yeah, they, it would be nice if he could help stretch the offense a little bit. 28th in yards per play, 5.2 for this Bears passing attack. That's pathetic. And, I understand the personnel issues with the wide receiver and the rookie quarterback and so forth, but it's got to be better than that. All right, so we talked about Adam Shaheen. He's expected to see more targets in a passing game because of Zach Miller's injuries. Has he shown you anything to give you hope he can help the offense? You're on the clock.
Like I said, rookie tight ends notoriously start slow. It's a brand new ball game then, and it's much different than college, especially for a former basketball player that played his football at Ashland. So, I mean, I'm still really excited about this guy. I get it. 1 catch. He's got a touchdown, 1 catch. But you look at some of the other rookie tight ends in the league right now. O.J. Howard, he was a first-round pick. He only has 13 catches. Evan Ingram, a little bit more production, but the Giants pass it quite a bit more, and it also helps that they lost their entire receiving core, so he might be the only game in town. So as far as Shaheen goes, I think he's still learning the pro game, and I think this is a real opportunity for him to get a crash course in what he needs to do. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be drops, but and because he's going to be so inside of his own head sometimes, trying to remember his assignments and making sure he doesn't screw up, that he forgets to catch the ball every once in a while. But if there's ever a time to get your mistakes out on offense, I would say now would be the prime time, since everyone around the Bears organization isn't expecting much out of the offense anyway. So you can't coach that kind of size. He's 6'6", 270. Work him in now, see what he got. And I think they went into this thinking this was a 2-year project.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I haven't looked at O.J. Howard's stats lately, but, the last time I did, they weren't hyper impressive. I understand he's been doing a really good job of blocking, and I've seen improvement in Shaheen's blocking from week to week. So it's going to take a little while, but I'm with you. I mean, this guy's got all the tools to become a very successful guy, and perhaps we just need to be patient as fans. Okay, now where do you see this defense ending up statistically? I mean, they're playing lights out. Do you expect the second half of the season for this defense to continue? And is it possible that they could be a top 5 defense by the end of the season? John, you're on the clock.
I see them finishing essentially where they are now. They're going to be a top 10 defense, assuming that everyone stays healthy, which is never a safe assumption given the history of the Bears and given the history of the game of football. But I think a lot of this also depends on how the offense progresses as well. There's 8 more weeks of getting 1 to 2 minute breaks between drives. That's going to wear down any athlete. That's going to wear down the greatest of athletes if you're putting in all this work on defense, and you get then a 3 and out. It's a run, pass, and all of a sudden you got 90 seconds, and you got to get back out there. You're going to be more tired, and you're going to put yourself more. You're going to be more susceptible to injury. So, I mean, a lot of the offense has just as much to do with this. But if you're a Bears fan, I don't think you were expecting this defense to be this good. This defense keeps them competitive, and it's fun to watch a kid like Eddie Jackson evolve before your eyes. It's fun to watch a guy like Adrian Amos take a step forward after we really weren't sure what we were going to get out of him. So the defense is the least of my concerns at this point. So, I mean, Bears fans know what the stable side of the ball is right now. I mean, at least it makes the game watchable, and it's something to take comfort in when you're watching it, knowing that at least you're not going to lose 55-10. You might just lose 16-10.
It really has made Bears football fun to see again, this defense. It reminds me of the defense of the 80s and 90s, where they just, were entertaining to watch. So let's hope they continue to progress. And I hope to see them as a top 5 defense. I'm a little bit more optimistic than you on where they are statistically, but I agree with you that a lot has to do with the offense. The offense has to help this defense.
Yeah, it's a battle of attrition. You got to stay healthy, and if they're not getting that, if they're just getting trotted out there after with like a minute break, and they're just out there the entire game, you can't expect everyone to stay healthy. That's the only concern I have when it comes to the defense not taking that next step forward.
Totally legit concern there. Okay, question number 5. Vic Fangio's star is rising. I'm actually disappointed that he's not the interim head coach of the Chicago Bears right now. Do you think if the Bears make a coaching change at the end of the season, do you make Vic Fangio a candidate for the head coaching job, and do you think he's a viable head coach in the NFL? You have 55 seconds, and the clock starts now.
I think he's not only a viable candidate for the Bears job, but probably a bunch of other teams as well. They're going to be looking at this guy. He's turned this defense from an afterthought into a force this season. And this is a guy that controls his own fate. His contract's up after this year, and he may decide there are greener pastures elsewhere. If the Bears do decide to offer Fangio the job, and he would take it, I do see a tiny problem being created there. This would be a defensive coach that may be able to hire a good offensive coordinator to progress their young quarterback. But in doing that, they're allowing a coordinator to be poached if he starts to have real success with Trubisky in the offense. Let's say Fangio is the head coach. He brings in a guy for a year or two. Trubisky's on fire. He turns into the guy who think he's going to be. The offense is clicking. And now that coordinator is now the hot head coaching hire, and we're back to square one. And I think a young quarterback benefits greatly from consistency. We've seen it with young quarterbacks before, like Alex Smith, who could never stay in the same system. And then when he finally gets into Andy Reid's system, we see what he does this year. But would I be upset with Fangio as the head coach? Absolutely not, because at least he looks competent as compared to what we're used to. So I think that's if I had to just find a flaw in that would be the only thing. And so if that's the only concern you got, then I guess you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely. And I guess I agree with your concern. You bring in an offensive coordinator, he does well, you're probably going to lose him. But I wonder how it is that the New England Patriots have succeeded, because Bill Belichick, correct me if I'm wrong, he was a defensive coordinator, right? Correct? Correct.
Yeah, he was with the Browns. He got booted from Cleveland. He's the defensive guy. He's had Josh McDaniels for the better part of that. I mean, I know he had his little stint in Denver and stuff, but I think, and a lot of that does come down to the head coach. If they have a system they want to run, then they got to find. Then they kind of tailor fit the coordinator to the system, and I guess that is Josh McDaniel's system in New England. It also doesn't help that doesn't hurt that they have Tom Brady there as well. And the reason they're so successful is they're able to adapt to their personnel. They were able to get more vertical with Randy Moss, and then they don't have a deep threat, so they have Edelman and they have Welker and they have Deion Branch and all these guys, and then they have Gronk and at one point Aaron Hernandez. But I think they're so successful because they are able to adapt. And if the Bears can get a coaching staff like that, then yeah, if they can get a coaching staff like New England, I don't care who the head coach is. They can be a special teams guy. But they gotta find a guy that can put it all together.
Well, I hope that whoever they bring in is going to have a little bit more of a dynamic personality than our present head coach. I've been in the communications business for many, many years, and when I hear Coach Fox talk, it's like my shoulders start to sag, and I got to really fight the battle of the attention span here. What did he say again? So
it's easy to lose what he says, and that's unfortunate. And maybe that's his shtick. Maybe that's what he does. But it is frustrating. And I know normally after that fifth question we go right into a prediction. Being that it's the bye week, although I'm going to look over the rest of the season. There's 8 games left. They're 3-5 right now. I'm going to go through and see how many wins. And I really haven't prepped for this at all. Looking over the rest of the schedule, but they're 3-5. I can see them beating Green Bay at home because there's no Aaron Rodgers. I can see them later on beating the 49ers at home, and I can see them beating the Browns at home. So that's 3 wins that I'm going to allot them there. And then I think that they can split with Detroit, whether they take them at home or take them at Detroit. I'm going to give them 1 out of 2 wins against the Lions, and then they have the Bengals at Cincinnati. Oh man, that's going to be. I don't think that's going to be as easy as people think it is. But let's say they can beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati. That's 5 more wins. I think they lose to the Eagles. And let's just say that they go to Minnesota in Week 17 and lose. So that's 5 more wins. That puts them at 8-8. I think their floor should be 8-8. Now, if they could overperform, maybe they get to 9-7. And as I went through my pipe dream opportunity a couple weeks ago, maybe that game against the Vikings means something. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I think the floor right now, we're looking at 8-8, which is better than what a lot of people thought they were going to be this year. So that'll go down as my prediction this week. And before we go, I just want to remind everybody the Bears Barroom Radio Network offers a variety of shows, not just like this, but there's a lot of great content on there. A lot of smarter guys than me on there talking about the Bears who are tuned into the network. So to subscribe to the Bears Barroom Radio Network, all you got to do is go to podbean.com. That's the easiest way. Go to the search bar and type in Bears Barroom. We're going to pop up. And then from there, you can download it to any of your podcast delivery channels. You can take us anywhere you want, and why wouldn't you? And you can do the same with iTunes. All you gotta do is type in Bears Barroom, and there you go. And if YouTube's your thing, you can go. We have a channel there. You can follow us on Twitter at Bears Barroom, and you can find me on Twitter at JD Buffone. So this has been Buffone 55. Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna be back to the same format next week whenever the Bears taking on the Packers. Man, that should be a good one. So until next time, I'm John Buffone. Have a great week.